You didn't lose her because you weren't attractive, successful, or interesting. You lost her because you walked straight into 7 traps you didn't even know you were setting. 7 behaviors that make women back away without confrontation, without warning, and without giving you a second chance. And here's what stings. She notices these mistakes long before you do. She reads them as risk, instability, or pressure, while you still think everything is going fine. If you've ever felt blindsided by a woman's sudden distance, this is where it really starts. Today, I'll show you the 7 mistakes that silently destroy attraction, and the fixes every man needs to implement immediately. Watch closely. One shift could save you from losing the next woman who actually mattered. Number 1, confessing too early, or showing neediness before she even knows who you are. You might think expressing your feelings quickly makes you honest, romantic, or straightforward. But to a woman, especially a woman who has lived long enough to see patterns, it sends a very different message. When a man looks at her after a handful of conversations and declares deep emotion, she doesn't hear admiration. She hears urgency. She hears fear of losing her. She hears a man trying to lock down a connection that hasn't been built yet. Women don't trust sudden intensity. They trust patterns. They trust consistency. They trust the type of interest that develops slowly, not the kind that erupts out of nowhere. When your feelings escalate too fast, what she sees is not passion. What she sees is a lack of standards. A man who attaches to whoever shows up, not someone who chooses intentionally. Imagine this. A man meets a woman, feels a spark, and within days he's telling her she's different, that he hasn't felt this way in years, that he knows what he wants. In his mind, he's being bold. In her mind, he's collapsing his value. Because if you fall this quickly for her, the question becomes simple. How many others have you fallen for just as fast? A woman can sense neediness before you even open your mouth. It's in the pacing. It's in the pressure. It's in the way you try to define something she hasn't had the space to feel yet. The moment you rush, you hand her the emotional steering wheel while stripping away your own leverage. And once she senses that imbalance, she stops seeing you as a man with choices. She sees you as a man hoping to be chosen. The truth is simple. When you move too fast, you amplify every insecurity she carries. You look like a risk, someone who might cling, someone who might crumble, someone who might make the relationship feel heavier than it needs to be. If you want her to trust the connection, let the bond breathe. Let the interest unfold. Let her curiosity grow instead of suffocating it with declarations she hasn't earned. Slow is strong. Steady is confident. Measured is attractive. That's how you keep your power and how you keep her interest. Number 2, possessiveness and the need to control what was never yours to begin with. Control never feels like love to a woman. It feels like a warning. And the moment she senses a man trying to manage her choices, her schedule, her friendships, or her freedom, something inside her closes. Not because she doesn't like you, but because every woman has learned, sometimes the hard way, that losing her independence is the first step toward losing herself. Most men don't realize this. They think frequent check-ins, constant updates, and monitoring her day are signs of care. But to her, it's a signal that you're worried about being left, not a signal that you're confident enough to stay chosen. When a man needs reassurance every few hours, when he asks where she is, who she is with, why she didn't reply fast enough, when he turns curiosity into surveillance, the message becomes painfully clear. He doesn't trust her judgment, and he doesn't trust his own value. Imagine a woman genuinely interested in a man. She enjoys his company. She laughs at his jokes. She starts imagining where this could go. But a week later, he's messaging non-stop, checking her online status, reading into every delay, asking her to adjust her plans so they can talk. What began as attraction now feels like a cage. She starts to breathe differently. She starts to rethink everything. and eventually, she pulls back. Because when you try to cage her, she doesn't feel protected. She feels hunted. Possessiveness is never about her behavior. It's about your fear. The fear that she will meet someone better. The fear that she will walk away. The fear that you aren't enough. And the irony is sharp. The more you try to control her, the faster you prove those fears right. Women are drawn to men who trust themselves. Men who don't need to police someone else to feel secure. Men who give space without losing presence. When a woman feels trusted, she relaxes into the connection. When she feels cornered, she exits to save herself. If you want her loyalty, don't grip tighter. Build confidence. Build boundaries. Build a life that doesn't collapse when she steps out with friends or doesn't reply for an hour. A man who trusts his own value never needs to control a woman's freedom. And that's exactly why she chooses him. Number 3, bringing your past into a place that was supposed to be clean. Nothing kills a woman's curiosity faster than hearing too much about the person who came before her. You may think you're being transparent, mature, or simply sharing your journey, but to a woman, those stories do more than fill silence. They shift the entire dynamic. They make her question where she stands, what role she's stepping into, and whether you're really ready for anything new at all. Women read between lines. They don't just hear what you say about your ex, they hear what it reveals about you. If you speak too fondly of your past relationship, she quietly wonders why you're not still in it. If you speak too harshly, she wonders what you'll say about her when she becomes the past. Either way, she begins to calculate risk, because every time you bring up your ex, you remind her she's competing with a ghost. Imagine this. A man is sitting across from a woman he likes. The atmosphere is easy, the flow is natural, she's giving him her full attention. Then, out of nowhere, he starts talking about how his ex never appreciated him, or how she used to complain about everything, or how she was the one who really broke him. In his mind, he's sharing history. In her mind, he just dragged another woman into the room and placed her right between them. Now she's no longer thinking about the connection. She's thinking about patterns. She's thinking about emotional baggage. She's thinking about whether she's walking into a situation still haunted by what came before. Oversharing doesn't make you honest. It makes you look unresolved. And comparison, even subtle comparison, makes her feel disposable, like she's auditioning for a role someone else already played. A healthy man speaks of his past with neutrality, not bitterness, not nostalgia, just clarity, enough to give context, never enough to create shadows. He doesn't use the present to fix the past, and he doesn't use a new woman to soothe old wounds. If you want her to see herself clearly in your life, you have to stop holding up mirrors that reflect someone else. Leave what's behind you where it belongs, behind you. That's how you give a new connection the space it needs to grow. Number 4, holding back so much that nothing in the connection can breathe. Most men hear the word stingy and think it only refers to money. But to a woman, stinginess shows up long before a bill ever lands on the table. It shows up in the way you share, in the way you give, in the way you make space, or refuse to. A woman reads generosity not as wealth, but as emotional capacity. And when she senses scarcity in you, she instinctively pulls away, because scarcity always leads to disappointment. This isn't about buying gifts. This is about energy, attention, presence, effort. These are the currencies women track, and they reveal far more about a man's character than the size of his wallet. Imagine a man who never initiates plans, never shares stories unless asked, never offers support unless prompted, never contributes unless it's convenient. He may think he's being chill, independent, or low maintenance, but what she sees is someone who's unavailable, self-focused, and disconnected from the idea of partnership. Even something as simple as refusing to share a meal or insisting on keeping everything separate sends a quiet message: I'm here, but only for myself. When everything is about you, nothing grows between you. Women don't want a man who gives endlessly without boundaries. They want a man who gives thoughtfully, willingly, and with intention. A man who shows that he has room for someone else in his world, not just physically, but emotionally. Because connection isn't built through grand gestures. It's built through small signals that say, "There's space for you here." Stinginess, whether emotional or material, makes a woman feel like she's pouring into a dry well. She starts to sense that every investment she makes will be one-sided. And once that thought settles, the relationship begins to feel like a burden rather than a bond. You don't need to be lavish. You don't need to overextend yourself. You simply need to demonstrate that you're not living life in a tight box where nothing and no one else fits. Generosity isn't measured by what you spend. It's measured by what you're willing to open. Share your time, share your thoughts, share your presence. Share enough of yourself that she feels invited, not excluded. A connection can only grow when there's room for two.
Number 5, moving toward physical closeness faster than the emotional foundation can hold. Every woman carries an internal alarm system, not because she's dramatic, not because she's overthinking, but because the cost of misjudging a man is higher for her than it is for you. When a man pushes for intimacy early, what he may see as chemistry, she interprets as a shortcut, a bypass, a rush toward something that hasn't been built with care. And that rush makes her cautious, not closer. Women don't fear connection, they fear regret. They fear giving access to someone who treats closeness like a reward he's eager to collect, rather than a moment that emerges naturally from trust. When you lean in too aggressively, when you let your physical desire run ahead of your character, she feels the imbalance immediately. If your body moves faster than your character, she'll feel it. Picture this: a man has a great evening with a woman, the kind where conversation flows, eyes lock, and everything feels aligned. But instead of letting that connection soak in, he tries to escalate things quickly. He pushes for more closeness than the moment can hold. He treats a spark like a guarantee. And suddenly, what felt safe now feels rushed. She pulls back not because she isn't interested, but because she feels pressured to make a choice she isn't ready for. Women are not afraid of intimacy. They are afraid of being misread. They are afraid of a man who sees the surface before he sees the person. When you push too soon, she doesn't feel wanted. She feels assessed, evaluated, and no woman wants to feel like a box you're trying to check. What keeps a woman engaged isn't speed, it's steadiness. It's reading her pace, not imposing yours. It's recognizing that genuine desire grows when it's honored, not rushed. If you want her trust, let her lead the timing. Let her enthusiasm guide the moment. Let the tension build naturally instead of treating it like an obstacle you need to overcome. Patience isn't passivity. It's power. It shows her you're not driven by impulse but by intention. And intention is what makes a woman feel safe enough to move closer, not because she's pressured, but because she wants to. The more respect you show her pace, the more willing she becomes to meet you there.
Number 6, saying one thing, doing another, and expecting her to trust the space between. Women don't leave men because of one broken promise. They leave because inconsistency reveals a truth you never said out loud. A woman watches what you do far more closely than what you claim. And when your actions wobble, when your word shifts depending on your mood, when you treat reliability like an optional trait instead of a standard, she feels it instantly. Women don't need perfection. They need predictability. Not routine, but reliability. The sense that when you speak, your words have weight. That your commitments aren't made lightly. That your effort isn't a negotiation every time life gets inconvenient. Imagine this. A man promises he'll call later. He doesn't. He says he'll show up for dinner. He cancels. He claims he's ready for something serious, then disappears for 3 days. None of these moments seem catastrophic on their own, but to a woman, they stack. They form a pattern, and the pattern whispers something she can't ignore. He says things he doesn't intend to honor. And once she believes that, everything shifts. Consistency is attraction. Chaos is repellent. When a woman begins to question your reliability, she immediately imagines what a future with you would feel like. And if that future looks unstable, stressful, or unpredictable, she'll step back long before anything official begins. She's not punishing you. She's protecting herself. Many men mistake loyalty for tolerance. They assume that if a woman likes them, she'll endure the mixed signals and the broken commitments. But a mature woman doesn't wait around hoping you'll become someone she can depend on. She saves time by walking away early. Reliability is more than keeping promises. It's showing you have a center, a moral and emotional baseline that doesn't vanish when life distracts you. And that baseline is what makes you trustworthy. If you want her respect, don't offer her empty assurances. Give her clarity. Show up when you say you will. Do what you commit to, even in small things. Speak less and demonstrate more. A man whose actions align with his words becomes rare in her world, and rarity is irresistible.
Number 7. Showing up with either too little presence or far too much noise. A woman doesn't just listen to what you say, she listens to how you occupy space. Presence is the silent language of attraction, and it communicates long before your words ever do. When a man carries himself with strength, calm, and intention, a woman feels it. But the opposite is just as true. If you shrink, she senses it. If you overwhelm, she senses that too. Timidity isn't harmless the way some men think it is. A woman doesn't read shyness as sweet. She reads it as uncertainty, as hesitation, as a man who won't stand for himself, and therefore can't stand for her. When you're too afraid to make eye contact, too unsure to speak your mind, too hesitant to express interest, she doesn't feel flattered by your restraint. She feels the weight of always having to lead, and that drains her. A man without presence gets ignored. But on the opposite end is the man who talks so much he leaves no room for the moment to breathe. The man who fills every silence with explanations, stories, opinions, and details she never asked for. He mistakes volume for confidence, when in reality, all she feels is chaos. A man who talks endlessly reveals insecurity, not depth. He shows he's uncomfortable with stillness, and stillness is where true connection forms. A man without filters gets avoided. Imagine this. She sits across from you trying to get a sense of who you are. If you're silent and tense, she feels invisible. If you talk nonstop, she feels overwhelmed. In both cases, she doesn't see a man with emotional balance. She sees extremes, and extremes exhaust people. Women are naturally perceptive. They notice pacing, they notice energy, they notice when a man is grounded and when he's compensating. What she wants is a centered presence, someone who listens with intention, speaks with purpose, and holds himself with quiet confidence. Not a man who hides in the corner of his own life, and not a man who performs loudly to avoid being seen clearly. Your presence is your anchor. Your sense of composure is your signal, and your balance between speaking and listening determines whether she feels drawn toward you or drained by you. Command the room without dominating it. Speak with value, not volume. Hold your ground without forcing hers. That's the kind of presence a woman remembers and respects.
You've just walked through 7 patterns, not theories, not vague ideas, but the exact behaviors that make a woman hesitate, withdraw, or quietly choose another path. These aren't small mistakes, they're signals. Signals she reads instantly, long before you ever realize she's already pulling back. And if you're honest with yourself, you've probably seen these patterns in your past situations too. You've felt the shift. You've sensed the distance. You've watched something promising suddenly evaporate without understanding why. Now you do. Women don't walk away because they're unpredictable. They walk away because they're protecting themselves. Every action you take, or fail to take, tells her whether you're safe emotionally, whether you're steady, whether you're choosing her consciously, or simply clinging out of fear. These 7 mistakes are not about perfection. They're about awareness. They're reminders that attraction isn't something you chase. It's something you sustain through your presence, your stability, your character. A woman doesn't retreat from men. She retreats from patterns. The pattern of being rushed, the pattern of being controlled, the pattern of hearing too much about the past, the pattern of feeling alone while standing next to someone, the pattern of being pushed before she's ready, the pattern of inconsistency, the pattern of imbalance, too small or too loud. If you want different results, you don't need to reinvent yourself. You just need to refine the parts of you that have been running on autopilot. You need sharper standards, stronger boundaries, clearer intention. You need to lead your life with steadiness, not urgency. With self-respect, not fear. With confidence, not noise. Because here's the truth you can't ignore. You don't lose women. You lose yourself first, and they simply respond to that. If this brought clarity, if you saw yourself in any of these moments, then don't just watch and move on. Stay, learn, evolve. Subscribe so you never go blind in relationships again. Like the video if it opens something in you. Share it with a man who needs to hear it. And tell me in the comments which mistake hit you the hardest, or the one you're determined to never repeat. Your growth starts the moment you decide you're done being in your own way.